Jonathan, let's just talk about how this all began, because Nigeria has clearly had some beef, if you will, for lack of a better word, with Twitter for some time. Obviously, the EndSARS movement really grew thanks to Twitter. That's number one. Twitter actually chose Ghana as its headquarters instead of Nigeria. A lot of people regarded that as a snub. And now Twitter actually ended up deleting one of President Buhari's tweets just last week. Walk us through how this whole thing began.
Yeah, no, I think you're quite right. You've put your finger on the key issues there. I think the one is that Nigeria really was annoyed when in April Twitter set up its headquarters in Ghana, and of course Ghana is many times smaller than Nigeria. It's about 30 million people compared with more than 200 million people. So it's much smaller, and yet because they're both English-speaking former British colonies, they kind of see themselves as real rivals in the region, and it annoyed a lot of Nigerians as well as the government that Twitter would put its regional headquarters in a much smaller country, and the implication of that also being that Twitter was seeing Ghana as kind of more stable and a better regulatory environment. But the annoyance is also sort of deeply political. I think you mentioned the EndSARS protests, which were this wave of protests in Lagos, which is the commercial capital, but across many other cities where young people came out protesting against police violence. And in fact, many of the young people who were protesting were the kind of sort of tech-savvy people who were spreading the protests on Twitter, but also the kinds of people who ideally would be working for Twitter. And they were saying that police would stop someone carrying a laptop and kind of rough them up and demand bribes. Right. So you had this protest that culminated in a massacre of 12 people in Lagos by the police.
Jonathan, let me just ask you this, though. I mean, is this a case, just in terms of Buhari and his administration banning Twitter right now, is this a case of misplaced priorities? Because you think about some of the issues that Nigeria is dealing with right now. Insecurity. We've reported on the kidnappings, the banditry, the violence in certain parts of the country. And then you think about how quickly they responded to this, if only they could respond as quickly to some of the more pressing issues facing the country.
Yeah, exactly. So for a long time, people sort of rather disparagingly, called President Buhari, sort of go slow. Just because, it took him months after he first came in to even sort of form a government, to sort of set up his cabinet. He's been incredibly slow on issues like Boko Haram, and now Islamic State in the northeast of the country, and where these jihadists have overrun an area almost the size of Belgium in the northeast. You've got incredible levels of violence across other parts of the country, and yet the government has just been absolutely paralyzed, and at the same time has this incredibly thin skin. So the moment that the president kind of took offense at Twitter deleting one of his tweets, he acted incredibly quickly, but has not been able to act on the really important economic and security issues facing the country.
So what does this tell us about Buhari's leadership style? I mean, he was president roughly around the same time that I was born, and he was famous for the war against indiscipline. I remember back in the day there was the environmental sanitation days in Nigeria where every last Saturday of the month you had to clean your house and make it look spick and span, and Buhari was one of the architects of that. So now with this Twitter ban, I mean, what does this tell you about his dictatorial style, if you will?
So this absolutely cuts to the kind of deepest concerns that people had before the election in 2015 when he won his first term, and that was, they were saying, here is a man who was a general, who was a military dictator back in the 1980s, and you can take the general out of his uniform, but can you take the uniform out of the general? And people were concerned that his previous bouts of dictatorialism, sort of beating people if they didn't queue up in orderly lines to board buses or keep the streets clean, they kind of wondered how this man would transition to being a Democrat. And in 2015 he said he was committed to democracy and pluralism and all of that, and yet you kind of scratch a little bit below the surface and you see this real dictatorial streak coming out where he just kind of wants to pass edicts and rule by as if ordering soldiers around instead of being the president of a large democracy.
Yeah. All right, Jonathan, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for being on the show.